In today's video, we're doing a review of MasterClass. So depending on your situation, you might be looking to this for yourself, for a loved one, maybe you're even looking at giving it as a gift. But if you're like me, you might be a lifelong learner who has a lot of curiosities, but you're not sure if it's going to be worth the price of admission to get into the program. One of the concerns that I had with MasterClass before getting into it is like sometimes if it's like all celebrities, are they good at teaching though? Just because you can do something doesn't mean you can actually teach it. So I'm gonna be getting into all of these things throughout this video, but there is one thing that I want to talk about more than anything else, and that is a term called information asymmetry, because I think it's gonna make a lot of sense for this video. I'm gonna explain it because I learned it from MasterClass. So right now would be a good time to mention too, you may have noticed that there is paid promotion marked for this video. I did receive a copy of MasterClass for free, a subscription to review. I have not been paid for this review, but if you are interested in getting set up, there is an affiliate link in the description below. And if you use that link, it helps to support my YouTube channel. Now, let's say we were to click on that link. I wanna show you what it looks like when you get set up, because this is really important for trying to figure out exactly what kind of courses you wanna take and getting set up with the program. So when you click that link and get logged in, what you're gonna be taken to is a screen called Onboarding. So what it looks like is something like this. And I have to say for MasterClass, the cinematography, the editing, everything is amazing. For me, big deal doing a second angle like this. For them, I mean, they're moving around quite a bit. It's really engaging when you're going through the content. But one of the important things here is when you're getting set up, you're gonna let them know, you're man, woman, they're just kind of collecting some data here. Do you wanna learn all things? Are you here for a certain instructor or instructors, or I'm interested in specific subjects? So this is going to vary depending on who you are, but I'm going to show you as I go forwards and backwards how this will change what you're going to see when you get set up with MasterClass. So let's say you're here for a certain instructor. So when you do that, what it's going to do is it's going to have top picks here, and you want to pick 5 different instructors that you're interested in. So if you are somebody who is like, I want to learn about sales and persuasion from Daniel Pink, which I'm going to talk about more in a minute, or I like Dan Brown's writing style, you can do that. But if you were to go back and then say I'm interested in specific subjects, this is what this would look like when you get in. So now you can see that it's actually more about the subjects that you can get into, because maybe you're just curious about business, food, home and lifestyle, writing, arts and entertainment, community, government, design and style, science and tech, sports and gaming, music and wellness. So for me, I'm kind of into stuff like business, writing, creative, design. That's what I am into, but it may be different for you. And what you can see here too is, what I like about this is this might make more sense for you, is you can see how many classes there are and how many videos there are. So it is kind of a little bit uneven a little bit. So if you're somebody who's really into science and tech, you might only have 4 classes for that. It all depends on when you're watching this video. But if you're somebody who's into business or arts and entertainment, there's a ton of classes. So it all varies a little bit. So that's something you want to consider too. Like, are you somebody who's into science and tech? Well, maybe this wouldn't be the perfect thing for you. There might be somewhere else you'd want to go. But if you're somebody who wants to learn a lot of different things, I think it's pretty cool that you can get into all these things. And again, I'm showing you this right now because of information asymmetry. So one of the things that I did when I got in is I watched Daniel Pink's class on sales and persuasion first, and I learned some really interesting things from this. And one of the things he talks about is the way that we take in information and are in a sales process or a negotiation has changed dramatically in the last 10 years, probably more than it has in the past 1,000 years. So what information asymmetry is the idea that someone has more information than somebody else, right? It's not symmetrical, it's asymmetrical. And because of that, the person with more information has more power. Well, that is all flipped on its head now because of the internet. So 20 years ago, if you were to go buy a car, the person selling the car has all the information. But now, before you even go to look at that car, you're looking up Kelley Blue Book values on it. Same thing with a house. You had to go through a realtor because they had the keys to the MLS listings and you had to list through them. And then Zillow came along and now you can see all the information on that home. And because of this, there's actually been more of a balance and it's been more informational symmetry instead of asymmetry. Now, the reason that I mentioned this is one of the things that Daniel Pink talks about is that in a modern era today, it's not so much about having information, but it's about being able to curate information. So how are you able to take different bits of information and put them in a package for people so that they can understand and learn from them? So that's what I'm trying to do in this video, is not only talk about the things I like and dislike about the service, but show you how you would actually get set up and into the service. If I was to sit here and talk about pricing and say it's $15 a month, $180 a year, that's all information that you can find quickly. But what I want to do as I'm presenting this information is how can I package things, have you learn something new, feel like you actually got something out of this video, as opposed to just just kind of giving you information that you could find on a blog post. Now, one of the things that I dislike about this platform, because I did say I was going to mention some cons, if you're an avid YouTuber like I am, one of the things that I typically always do is I speed up videos. Now, you'll see here that you can speed it up or slow it down, but I do wish that this platform had a 1.25x speed. That would be nice, because I find that some of the instructors at 1.5 speed is too fast, but at 1x is too slow. So I hope that that's something that they add in the future, but we will see. So one of the interesting things about this service and the idea of learning from famous people, right? I don't know if you're like this, but sometimes who gives you the information matters just as much as what the information is. So I have somebody that I know who is kind of like an instant expert. He's always spouting off, giving you his opinion on everything. And to be honest, like, he actually has pretty good insights, but when he talks, it's like white noise for me. I just don't want to hear what he has to say, even if the information is good. And I think one of the advantages of having these celebrities teach these different topics is that these are already people that you know and trust and like. So I mentioned this because, like, for me, like, I really like Malcolm Gladwell as an author and also a podcaster. So one of the things that I know about him is that I like the way that he presents information. It's very easy for me to listen to. I really enjoy the way that he breaks down complicated subject matters. So when you already know and like this person that's going to be presenting the information, if you are interested in a specific expert, I think that's going to bode well for you, because the information is good, but it's also the person giving it to you is somebody who you appreciate and you want to learn from. So that's really important to mention. Also, a quick tip, if you're ever looking for like trustworthy reviews of a product or service, one thing that I recommend to people is go to the App Store, whether that be the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store, and check out the reviews. The reason I mention that is it's really difficult to kind of like game this system. If people don't like your app or they don't like the service, they're going to let you know in these types of reviews. So that's a good vote of confidence for this as well. So one thing that I'd like to talk about too is this idea of Keystone Learning. So I actually learned about Keystone habits from another book, which I believe was called Keystone Habits. And basically, there are certain habits that you have that have kind of like an ancillary effect to them. So they affect other parts of your life, other habits. So let's say that you were to start brushing your teeth better and more consistently. Sure, you might have, fresher breath and healthier teeth, but it really doesn't go into too many avenues of your life. But if you were to go on here and you were to go into library and search something like sleep, because maybe you have trouble sleeping like I do sometimes. So in this case, sleep is a keystone habit because it affects so many areas of your life. When you're well rested, you're more thoughtful, you have better patience, you eat better, it's easier to exercise, it's easier to just be a general better human being overall. So what I would suggest is when you get into MasterClass is, unless you have a really specific instructor and thing that you're looking for, I would suggest picking one of these courses that kind of has these Keystone Learnings. With that being said, this is actually the course that I have enjoyed the most so far. Daniel Pink is somebody who I have followed for a while, and he gets into sales and persuasion, which I know some people are like, I don't want to listen to that. But he actually makes a good point in the beginning of this content where he says that the average person, 40% of their job is spent in sales. Even if you're not in a sales role, you still have to talk to people, convince them of your point of view, try and get them to do things, and you're trying to always persuade and influence other people that you're working with. So this is one of these courses that you can take, and it may make you more effective in 40% of your job, depending on what type of job you have. But then he also gets into cool things as far as parenting. So one of the things he talks about is when you're parenting a child, that it can be a little bit difficult sometimes. So let's say it's a teenager, I think he said they're 13, they won't clean their room. And he said instead of just kind of berating them and being like, your room's a pigsty, why can't you clean up after yourself? What he says is give them 2 irrational questions. So the first question might be something like, hey, how would you say you feel about cleaning your room on a scale of 0 to 10? So that's kind of a weird question to ask. It's not the typical question a parent might ask. But then let's say the kid says a 2. So then you can ask a second irrational question and ask something like, well, why isn't it a 1? Why'd you pick a 2? So then what you're doing at this point with your child is they're thinking about the reasons why they actually do want to clean their room a little bit, and they're actually having those thoughts themselves and convincing themselves of why they'd want to clean their room. So that's why I would recommend this particular course to anybody who's interested in having more influence and potentially making your life a little bit easier as a parent. I've already been testing this out on my 3-year-old as I was trying to get him out of a bath earlier. And what I found with my 3-year-old is when he's taking a bath, he really doesn't want me to bathe him. And what they teach you in the course is a lot of it is really about perspective and placing yourself in the mind of the person that you're trying to influence. And then I started thinking about it like, what is it about me starting to give my son a bath that he really doesn't like? And it's when we get to his hair and we get water in his eyes. That's what he really doesn't like. So instead of just kind of going into it and normally like I would and start, washing his arms and everything, I talked to him first for a moment. I said, hey buddy, I'm going to start bathing you. We got to get cleaned up. But when we get to your hair, I'm going to really make sure that we don't get water in your eyes. It was such a cool thing because I saw like the light switch go on a little bit and he just kind of had a look and he's like, okay. So something he used to fight me on, all of a sudden I'm getting through very easily to him. So I thought that was pretty awesome. Another thing worth mentioning is like one of the concerns that I had getting into this is, am I going to have enough time to actually consume the content? One of the cons that, in my opinion, of this is I wish that they would lay things out a little cleaner as far as how long some of the courses are. So you can kind of see what I mean here is like they're showing you like all of the little segments of it, right? But then you actually have to click on each course to see what the full length of the course is. So then if you start the class, this is where you can start to see that it is 3 hours and 12 minutes. I find that a little bit frustrating that you never really see the full time of anything unless you get into the class. But from poking around at different classes and courses on here, I've been finding most of them are right around 3 hours. Now, I know that sounds like a lot of time for some people, but I did look it up. The average American still spends over 4 hours a day watching TV and 3 hours and 45 minutes on their cell phone if you have a smartphone. So right around 8 hours a day is what the average American spends watching TV and on their phone. And if you're like me, you get those notifications on your screen time on your phone saying you spent X amount of hours on different programs and you're like, what am I doing with my life? Well, take some of that time, carve it out, $15 a month, and you can be learning new things. You can be adding to your education. You could change your career potentially. And it's funny I say that because this is one that I'm interested in on voice acting for characters. It's just something that I've always been into. And if you don't mind me trying it out, this is one of my impressions. This is Sean Connery.
The key to a woman's heart is an unexpected gift at an unexpected time.
So it's just a weird little like thing that I'm into is impressions. And I don't know why it makes me feel weird, but that's one of the things I want to go through is voice acting. It's always been something I've been interested in. I do tend to think this leans towards the creative, but there are a lot of other things that you can do with it. I mentioned earlier for people who are interested in giving this as a gift, the way that would work is, again, if you use my link in the description below, what you'd want to do is give an annual membership. And at that point, it's going to have you sign up and then you can email that annual membership to whoever is interested in it. As for me, I always encourage people to spend money on your education. You go to school for like 20 something years and then you spend all this money on college, you get into a job or a role that you probably don't like if you're like most people, and then you just kind of accept it. And that's why sometimes just making a small investment like something like MasterClass and spending the time to learn new things and look at things differently and try to explore what you might be into is a great way to just figure out new avenues and places that you can go in life. So again, guys, thank you for watching and thank you for using my link in the description below because it helps to support my YouTube channel. And this next video here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare Skillshare versus MasterClass and which one might be a better fit for you depending on your needs. All right, guys, I'll catch you in the next video.